welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's your hosts Ian and Gary.
Hello.
And today we're going to review perhaps one of my most guilty pleasures, Electric Dreams, which came out in 1984 and was directed by Steve Barron, who was perhaps most well known for Coneheads and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. He's got a background history in music video production, working alongside Madonna, David Bowie, and Michael Jackson, just to name a few. So he's already got a history in music video production, which is what heavily influences Electric Dreams, which stars Virginia Madsen, who perhaps most well known for the Candyman movie. She was also in the number 23, and she had a fantastic performance in Sideways. She's also fantastic in Hell on Wheels. And then we also have Lenny von Dohlen, who unfortunately is not the greatest actor and has only had small appearances here and there. Perhaps most noteworthy was Home Alone 3. And he almost had an uncredited role in an episode of Red Dwarf as the cop. Yeah. So, and we also have Bud Cort as the voice of the computer. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis for Electric Dreams?
Well, the story follows Miles, who is an architect, and as his life is completely crazy, he decides to invest into buying a new computer to help him kind of balance his life. He ends up meeting Virginia Madsen's character Magdalene, who lives upstairs, and kind of falls in love with her the first time he sees her. But he makes this situation more difficult by making his PC become sentient.
She's with.
Hello?
Hello. 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 Hello.
You're talking.
You're talking. Don't touch.
This film came out, obviously, early 80s. Computers and technology was kind of becoming more prevalent in society. More people were having brick mobile phones, pagers. All of these electronics were kind of invading everyone's lives. And you sort of see Miles, he's late for work, he's not organized, and all of his co-workers and friends are like, hey, you need this personal organizer, hey, you need this, hey, this will sort out your life. Yeah. And he's just completely inept. He has no idea how to access technology, which I think is still almost relevant today, because I think that age group from that time that's kind of grown up now is kind of almost frightened by technology today. There's still so many people that don't even have an email address just because they're just not sure what to do with the computer. And so you kind of get that humorous scene where he goes into the store and he's just like, oh, I want one of those personal organizers. She's like, you don't want one of those. You want to look to the future. Stay one step ahead.
One of these things.
And he's just like, oh, I don't want one of those. Oh. And lo and behold, he buys it, brings him back. We have one of the first montages of the movie.
Such a weird scene that he hooks everything up into this white brick on his table. It's
so old now.
At the time, this thing must have looked so advanced, and it does have this really weird futuristic appeal to it. And he hooks up his coffee machine, he hooks up the security to his door, he just plugs it into everything, and I'm like, have you not watched Terminator? This is not a good idea.
And so we get to the crux of the movie, which is where he's accessing the internet, if you will, and he decides to do he tries to steal data from his boss's computer, which is, you've been told, is this massive thing that's just fills the basement of the office. And so he does a data dump from it, and straight away his computer starts frying with the amount of information it's trying to process. The champagne bottle bursts, and he just pours the champagne all over the computer to cool it down.
Do not do that.
And it is actually one of my favourite sequences in the film where the music kicks in straight away, and you watch this kind of rainbow colour effect wash over the circuitry, and that there is the the genesis of the computer becoming sentient.
It's such a brilliantly filmed sequence because it is your typical 80s montage, but it's just the way that Miles is just happy-go-lucky and all these things are going right up until he has to pour champagne on the computer. But then the computer becomes more self-aware, shall we say, and starts to listen to Madeleine play her cello up the stairs. I really do love this sequence because it, for the time, it kind of shows you how advanced computers were to be recording this kind of music and then playing it back to her so that they can have a duet going.
Classical piece of music. It
Yeah.
was almost, you could say it was insulting to have this kind of synthesized piece of music complementing it, but in this sequence in the film, I absolutely loved that moment where the computer's very first thing it experiences as it's coming to life is this raw piece of music, and it starts trying to emulate it and kind of play along with it and duel, just like the song title, and it's a really great moment.
Yeah. And it then follows on with Miles obviously vying for Madeleine's affections, and she warms to him because she thinks all the things that are being done to her with obviously the music, she thinks it's him, and he's just stood there like, no, I've invented a brick. and that leads on to another brilliant sequence where obviously he uses the computer to try and design this perfect earthquake-proof brick, and he is just amazed that this computer is actually taking the designs, tiny little bit drawing lines to make this 3D image, and you're just like, oh, it must have been so sweet back then without the internet and Twitter and all that other shit.
Some of the technology that they do use in the film didn't really exist at the time, but it was kind of suggesting where we were just on the cusp
watch. the watch. I love that sequence as well, right at the beginning, where the girl is sat there talking to him, and he's talking back to her, but he doesn't realise that she's actually listening to a device which is translating English
she's
for
learning
her.
a language. And so we kind of get to what the crux of the movie is about, and that is that it's this odd love triangle between a man, a woman, and a computer. And we watch the relationship blossom between Madeleine and Miles, which happens almost too quickly. It's almost like as soon as they find each other, for him he's smitten straight away, and it's not hard to understand. Virginia Madsen is an 80s goddess in this movie. She is absolutely beautiful, and obviously she's fallen in love with him, believing that he's playing this music, where it's actually the computer that's playing this music and has now fallen in love with her. And Miles is kind of on the receiving end and trying to get the computer to write music for him to give to her so that she will love him. But his relationship with her is so awkward.
My what?
Your music, what I heard the other day.
Oh, that's, I told you, that's nothing.
What are you talking about? It was brilliant.
It was?
Extraordinary, like we were talking, communicating. Where did you study?
The Pasadena School of Design.
Your music?
No, architecture.
It's so cringeworthy to watch because he doesn't really know how to talk to her, and he's just so clumsy. It's after he's pushed past her because he's late for work. The next time they meet, he kind of drops all of his groceries into her basket or into her trolley.
Literally.
And he's so smitten with her that whilst they're walking through the aisle, she'd just be like, points to this random item on the shelf, and he just rushes over, grabs it, and puts it in the basket.
He doesn't mind, he's in love with her.
Completely. And it's obvious in that scene where there's this other character that's kind of got a love interest in Madeline, and he's kind of quite obvious with it, and it's where he's gone backstage and he's kind of seen this chemistry between them, and he's already, straight back kind of, okay, I'm just got to get out of here, because he kind of panics a little bit, and he makes this excuse that he's got another girl waiting for him, and you're just like, you've just fumbling this moment where you could have just taken it to the next level. But he just fumbles it, and you just think, the relationship has just ended, and he just says, so long, like that was it. And she's so gentle with him and so nice with him, where she's like, well, what are you doing on Wednesday? I'll cancel, I'll make plans. And he's kind of like, well, actually, yeah, okay, I'll meet you then. And so their relationship kind of just jumps from leaps and bounds from that moment where they've kind of fallen in love, and they're having day trips out, and they're having the best days they've ever had in their lives together.
Yeah.
At the same time, the computer is left at home, forced into slavery, into writing these songs and trying to understand what love is. And it doesn't really explore what this sentient AI is kind of going through in any kind of scientific sense. It's not like he kind of calls the computer companies and go, hey, I've got a computer that's alive, get it into the limelight or anything like that. He does keep it quiet, and it's embarrassing when she's like, I want to see your instrument, and
Where's what?
Your instrument.
and he's covered his monitor and his keyboard, and he's just like, my musical instrument's out for repairs. It's like, why are you so embarrassed to show that you have this computer?
Well, he is a very nerdish character. I mean, he like we said, he bumps into everything, but it's the awkwardness of the relationship he has with Madeline, and at the same time, the awkward relationship he has with the computer. He finds himself arguing with the computer, and then questioning why he's arguing with the computer. But the computer is so self-aware that it wants to know what love is.
Do you hear her?
Yes.
Do you talk her?
To her. Yes.
Did you see her?
Yeah, often. Are you sure there's no...
Don't touch.
And it's just like, moles, sorry. he mistakes him for moles all the way through the film. And he's just like, moles?
And my name's not Mole.
What is love? Tell me, how can I feel? And he's just like, it's so innocent.
It is.
Moles, that does not compute.
And it is a running gag that plays throughout the movie, and it does have a really beautiful payoff at the end. But it's what I really like about the computers coming alive is that it just sits and watches television all day because it has nothing else to do. It kind of reminded me of Johnny Five from Short Circuit, where it's just wants input. It just needs to understand what it is to be. It's trying to find inspiration to write music, and it does give quite a nice passive commentary on all the commercials that it plays. And it's like, too quick, too boring.
This box for you.
Too slow.
Volkswagen does it again.
Too simple. Too long.
Like, yeah, that one! And it starts writing its music, and you hear the beat going, and then obviously Miles comes back home and asks him to play this love song, and it is vulgar and crass, and it's really it's funny.
Hug, hold, squeeze and lick. Darling, I love you to bits, and I want to see your tits.
But it's the computer's understanding of love, and it's just like, moles, what is love? Well, love is the feeling between two people, and the computer's like, well, that's what I have. And Moles is like, no, don't touch me. Don't touch me, Moles. I know what love is. If you took out all of the musical moments and 80s montages in this film, it'd be a very sinister story.
It could be, because it kind of could verge on the aspects of being a genuinely frightening horror movie where he becomes a prisoner in his own house because the computer does now control all of his electronics, from the front door lock all the way to his electric toothbrush, and it kind of controls his radio, his television, his microwave, his printer. Just he doesn't even need to answer the phone anymore because the computer will just impersonate him and talk to his mother for him.
Who are you calling?
My mother, you said she called.
Oh, I've already talked to her.
You what?
Well, don't worry. I pretended I was you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
It's brilliant.
But it is bittersweet watching this computer want to be able to touch and feel without having any arms. And Miles kind of laughs at the computer and kind of belittles him just because it is a piece of software. And I love that silhouetted moment where he is screaming at the computer and it's like, oh, it's like a horror movie scene where it's just silhouetted all of a sudden. And I just thought... And Miles kind of asks himself, he's like, I'm talking to a machine, what's wrong with me? And I was like, wow, you're actually ahead of the time, because if you look around today, everyone is shouting at their computers. Nothing's changed. It's just spread.
It's such a beautiful, brilliant story, though. I mean, you could if you've never seen Electric Dreams, just take 5 minutes just to sit down, go back in time, watch a really nerdy guy fall in love with a really beautiful woman and then be stalked by a computer.
Moles? Moles? Moles, I want to meet her.
I love the little bits that the computer has where it's mimicking the dog that comes from next door and forces the dog to run away, the questioning of what love is and feelings and kissing, and then ultimately builds up to my favourite scene where Miles has taken Madeline out, snuck out with her, and the computer just goes absolutely ape shit and plugs into everything, turns everything on, plays music at like fucking really high volume, and then you have the neighbour next door like, Howard, go over there and tell him to turn that music down. And then the husband comes over, opens the door, and everything turns off. It's all quiet. And he closes the door and she's like, that's telling him, Howard. And the computer, without even a second, just mimics her perfectly.
That's telling him, Howard.
That's telling him, Howard.
And turns the music back up. It's like, yes!
I love Bud Cort's performance as the computer in this film. He emotes so much. And I thought it was interesting when they actually made the film that he was on set, but they put him in a box so that none of the other actors could actually ever see him while they were making the movie, because they didn't want to break the illusion of the computer being an actor.
Yeah.
So just to keep it that way, I thought was a really nice thing to do.
Shall I start dinner?
I'm eating out tonight.
I read a really interesting article today.
Will you give me a break?
You mean like in McDonald's?
No, give, like in the opposite of take, like the way you're taking over my life.
Like the way you take my songs?
I need a drink.
Just made it a little bit more believable that this computer was actually emoting these things. And you're right, some of the most memorable scenes from the film come from the computer left on its own, and just the random things that it ponders or watches or comments on. And I just love there's a small moment where the computer's still trying to understand love, and it plays a scene from The Love Bug, and the love bug shoots off down the road and it just comes up with its own commentary on that moment. There is another fantastic sequence that I love in the film, and it's kind of like a reference to the Philip K. Dick novel, Do Computers Dream of Electronic Sheep? And when the computer asks what dreams are, and it's kind of forced to go to sleep or shut down, and it does dream of electronic sheep jumping over an electronic fence, and it's a beautiful song. It's like Alice in Wonderland, and it's about the power of dreams, and you watch this computer's interpretation of dreaming, and it kind of also has things from its memory banks, if you will, of the earthquake, and it's the weird love triangle that the computer has found itself in and is also trying to understand, which also is explored in the final moments of the film, which I don't want to spoil, because if you've never seen it, I think it's for me, because this is a guilty pleasure, I get so emotionally invested in this film that I can't help but get teary-eyed when the computer does understand what love is, and it explains to them what it is and therefore what it means. And it's so simplistic, and because of that, it's absolutely fantastic. It's for me, it's really sublime. But I will say my favourite moments from the film come from the scenes after we've had Pac-Man chasing Miles around the house, blowing everything up. They're kind of at odds with each other, and Miles is out, and the computer's just called up the radio station and is asking this radio doctor to explain to him what love is.
When you are sitting in front of a crackling fireplace, and you take that lady into your arms...
But I don't have any arms.
Oh dear. Do you have anything else that you could touch her with?
I don't have anything.
Oh dear. Maybe you should go to a clinic.
But I can't, Dr. Ruth. Mold keeps me locked up.
Locked up? You must call the police right away.
Right away.
And it cuts to Miles, and he gets his credit cards chopped up when he's in the supermarket. It comes up on the security terminal, wanted, armed, and dangerous. And he's just like, that computer. And and they have that relationship bust up, of course, which is a typical trope in any kind of romantic comedy where he says the wrong things and he says something horrible to her. And you're just like, you've ruined it, you've ruined the relationship with the computer. But of course, it's a love movie. You've got to have those moments just before everything gets patched up and made right at the end with Electric Dreams, the song, which is just such a fantastic song. It encompasses everything that I love about the 80s. And what I also think is fantastic is that if you actually take the song on its own, there's actually scenes from the movie in there.
Yeah.
And of course, the reason why that song is playing in the music video is that all the record DJs and radio presenters are like, we don't know where it's coming from. And of course, after watching the movie, you know exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah.
It's not like the Lawnmower Man.
Or the Matrix.
Or the Matrix. Well, you get the idea. I absolutely love Electric Dreams. To be honest, I actually watch this film every year. It makes me feel so good. I laugh out loud at the clumsy moments. I love the chemistry between him and the computer. I love the trip to Alcatraz. There's just so many nice little moments in the film that I just keep watching it over and over again. And that's also because of the music. And like I said, it does encompass everything about the 80s, and it does have some fantastic artists in there. And you could just listen to the soundtrack for this film and re-experience the whole film just by listening to the songs. I think that's the testament to this film.
I watch this film every couple of years just to get that 80s fix. It's just filled with 80s nostalgia, and it is a really lovely story as well between a man, a woman, and a computer. And, you don't have to have Terminators involved either.
Which I also want to bring on to say, because I've always felt like Electric Dreams could be remade modern day, because I think that there are still people out there that have perhaps never brought a computer before, and that would go out there and, you can imagine the similar type of events unfolding, but just in a modern setting. And as I was having these thoughts, a film has just come out called Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. And it's a movie where a guy who has friends, has work and everything else, but kind of is going through a divorce, and he buys a computer, and the operating system was voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and they fall in love with each other, and the computer starts to explore what it's like to be alive, and it's brought the themes from Electric Dreams into the 21st century.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
That's telling them, Howard.
That's telling him, Howard.